I give the CIA a total credit for sponsoring and initiating the entire consciousness movement, counterculture events of the 1960s.
Welcome back to another episode of Rise to Liberty. Today I have a very special guest, Alan Paul Roberts, who has released a fantastic book from everything I've been able to see, flipping through it. The book title is The Globalist Plan to Collapse Everything to Usher in a New World Order, in their own words. How are you doing today, Alan?
I'm doing great, Jacob. How about yourself?
I'm doing quite well. Very excited for this conversation. It's a very interesting book, one that I think is very important, considering everything that you discuss in the book seems to be unfolding exactly as these psychopaths have said that they are going to do. So just real quick before we dive into the book, do you kind of want to just give a brief introduction of who you are and kind of how this book came to be?
Sure. So I guess you could say I'm a small business owner. That's my job. I run a small marketing firm and been doing that since 2011. Prior to that, I was in the corporate world, kind of came up through the ranks. I was VP of operations for one company, and then VP of operations for a second manufacturing firm, then became the head of sales and international marketing before I went out on my own in 2011. So busy guy, no intention to write a book, but the book happened anyway. And I've been talking about it whenever I get a chance ever since, So I've been on around 50 podcasts like this one, and just trying to get the word out, trying to get people to buy the book for the sake of spreading the word, spreading the knowledge. I believe, they say knowledge is power. Right. I think awareness and an awakening is power. And we got to get the country to a tipping point where there's enough people who are awake and aware that they push back against the tyranny, against the crime, against what they're trying to do to society to weaken it. The book is based on the premise that there are 11 critical pillars of society that are being methodically torn down by the globalists in an effort to actually bring it all down, and so they can, quote, build back better upon the ashes. So the build back better means build it back after you tear it down, because they really do want to establish a new world order, not just in the U.S., but worldwide, in particular, the Western nations. The book walks you through that, from the most obvious pillar, let's say, up through some that are not so obvious. And the idea for the book came to me in April 2024. I woke up. I don't have to get into it here necessarily unless you want to, but basically I woke up and had an almost immediate revelation of these 11 pillars under attack. It was a startling experience. And despite the fact that I'm as busy as I am, I actually decided to carve out time in my life to research the evidence for these 11 pillars that I believe I was shown, and to write about it in a way that is easy to understand and hopefully gets people motivated to do something about it. I like to say my goal is to get people from asleep to aware to know to hell no. So it's the fastest point from asleep to hell no possible, is what I believe. That's what I'm trying to do, because if we get that attitude and push back, I think we can save the country.
Right. Let's see here. I'd like to bring this up real quick. So here is your website for the book. Before we get into this, it's globalcollapsebook.com. Which is where you can find everything regarding the book. You can actually buy the book itself. Also, there's sections where you've been on other interviews to be able to talk about this, a little bit about yourself. By the way, love the coffee mug. That's absolutely amazing. So it looks like you can buy one signed copy, hardback or paperback, or you can buy big packs of it, which I assume once people start really flipping through this and seeing what it is you're talking about, they're going to want to get this to as many people as possible.
That's exactly it. Yeah, I mean, it comes in sets of 3, 6, 12, and 18 signed copies. And when you get up into the groups of signed copies, they're cheaper than an unsigned copy.
Right.
But the point is, yeah, there are some people who actually buy the 18 pack. I call that the Paul Revere pack.
I like it.
I have more orders for 3 than I do for singles, because
right.
People read it and a lot of them come back and say, man, I got to spread the word to my friends. And, you know, we all have family who just don't get it. And most of us, I think, feel a sense of stress for the people that don't get it, because we see how vulnerable they are, but they don't know it. You know, they're whistling in the dark, not knowing. And so, yeah, we have a heart for those people. And that's why I put them in those sets like that.
Right. So you were actually a skeptic, a self-described skeptic before this. So, and you kind of used the language that you kind of like woke up to this. What was it where you went from skeptic to realizing exactly what was going on?
Yes, that was a long journey, the gradual thing. And the gradual journey started happening before April 24. But the gradual journey was knowing that things just did not make sense with the whole 9/11 story. I mean, that was so obvious to me at one point that something was really wrong and something was being hidden there. That got my antenna up. And then the COVID thing really blew my mind. So that was so obvious that we were being manipulated, and it was fear. It was trying to use fear to manipulate and to blind and to paralyze, mentally paralyze people. So that became kind of obvious to me. And then the wide open southern border under Biden, man, that was the last straw. That was like, okay, our country's under attack. I don't know what all is going on, but I know it's on purpose, because nobody could be that stupid.
Right.
And I make that point in the book. When it's too stupid to be stupid, it's on purpose. And if it's on purpose, then why? And you start going down that. But the amazing turning point really came in April 24. That's when I started seeing the rest of it after that.
Right. And so you framed the book as in their own words, the globalists, the oligarchs.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I really enjoyed as I was flipping through the book. You basically allow them to tell the story. You just point out, here's where they say it.
Yes.
Now, I guess big picture, what is it that they're trying to say? What are they trying to tell people, or what is it that they are telling people? It's just most people either don't hear it or misunderstand what they're trying to say.
Yeah. So basically their plan, if you look closely enough, is in plain view. It's hiding in plain view. We hear pieces of it constantly. But we don't, because the news media is controlled, is owned, and that's documented in the book. The major news media is actually controlled by the CIA. They've had that as a plan. The book opens with 2 CIA director quotes. It's like the very first thing on the cover. When you flip it open, you see these 2 quotes. One is William Casey will know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false. And then the second is the other CIA director, also a William Colby. The Central Intelligence Agency owns everyone of any significance in the major media. So they own the media. In other words, they can frame the message, and their goal is disinformation. And we've been fed this forever. But part of their, it seems to be like almost their ritualistic belief, which I believe honestly is of satanic origin. For some reason, they think that they have to reveal their plans at some level in order to execute the plan. And in other words, if they reveal the plan and we don't push back, then we have given them our tacit approval to implement the plan.
Right.
And so they do reveal it, but you have to have your eyes open, or it'll go right over your head. But yeah, their plan is basically to destroy Western civilization, to destroy all belief in God, to destroy all sense of morality and inner conviction, inner strength, the strength to resist tyranny, to just absolutely crush that and replace it with a one world government whereby everything comes from the very top. It's dictated like the pyramid. The picture of the pyramid, the power comes down from the top, down through their layers to the masses, and they're in absolute control. And the precursor to some of this would be like China and North Korea. Different levels of manipulation and control, different levels of implementation of technology, especially in China, to exert the control.
Right.
But that's the model for the world, and it'll get worse than China if they have their way.
Yeah. The social credit score system, which, to me kind of seems like the infrastructure that they're trying to build by pushing all of these data centers. They're not data centers, they're not cloud centers, they're surveillance centers.
Right.
I'm actually located in Utah, which is a famous location.
That's a big one, right?
Yeah, for the NSA data center, and now the Stratus data center that's being pushed by Kevin O'Leary, which is supposed to be the largest data center in the world. And they frame this as, critical infrastructure. And I disagree. I don't
critical
believe,
to what?
Yeah,
critical
exactly.
to their level of control.
Right. So, I don't believe that the argument has been made that we actually need any of this. But, that's kind of one of their tricks. They're trying to get all of this built before we can even ask questions about it. So
yeah, that's the way they do it.
When you were waking up to this, what was that like for you? Because this is a pretty shocking, revelation that there are these, cartoonishly evil like oligarchs that really do want to control the world. So what was that like for you?
Well, it was it was a shocking experience waking up to this. So here's what happened. It was shocking but not scary, which is really odd. But I'll try to describe it. So I woke up the last Saturday in April 2024 about 4 a.m. Nothing special. I'm laying in bed for a minute. You know how sometimes you wake up and you just kind of pause.
Right.
I woke up. I didn't have any dream that I can recall. No nightmare, no sense of fear, no foreboding, no sense of anything. And then all of a sudden, like in a fraction of a second, it was just like wham. It started with 6 pillars of society that I mentally saw in front of me. Nothing visual. I didn't hear anything. But it was like, I call it an instant knowing. The way there would be an instant, let's say, understanding. If you walked into a dark room and somebody turned on the lights and there were 6 TV screens in front of you, and you had the mental ability to take in all 6 at once, it would be similar to that. But again, it wasn't visual. It was like an instant knowing of 6 things simultaneously. Like, I can't replicate that memory in my mind because I can't wrap my head around 6 things understanding at once. But it was like an energy that was turned on, and the knowledge felt like it was being transferred. And it was so strong, and it lasted between half a minute and 2 minutes. I don't know exactly, but it was so strong that when it was done, I was like, whoa, what was that? And it was 4 a.m. I keep paper and pencil in the bathroom. I wrote them down because I figured I'm going to get back to sleep and I want to think about it, in the morning. And I'm laying there after I wrote them down. I'm laying back in bed thinking about them. And then it was like the same exact experience, but 3 more. It was just boom. All of a sudden, it. And I remember this sense of, wow, I never thought of it like that. It's like I can see it, but I never thought of it like that. Wrote them down and back to bed. And then 2 more for the final 2 to make 11, 6, 3, and 2.
Right.
And at that time, they say 3 times is a charm. At that point, rip the covers off, like, what is going on? And I wrote them down too. And I do have a daily prayer routine. So
Right.
when you have that, when I've been doing this for 20 years, I have a daily prayer routine. I
Right.
start the morning every day with it. And so when you're in that habit, you get a sense of knowing when something is kind of from God. Now, I've never had big revelations from God, but just the
Right.
sense of his presence was there. And so in my mind, I didn't speak out loud. In my mind, I'm just talking to God, saying, God, what is up? Why are you showing me this? Because I'm thinking two things. Number one, it's not religious. Well, one
Right.
pillar was religious, but the other 11 were totally non-religious at all. And number two, I'm nobody. I don't have a voice. I don't have, why would
Right.
you even show me this?
Right.
And I'm thinking, why, and not getting any sense. And then all of a sudden it just dawns on me, like, do you want me to write a book? And if you want me to write a book, what's the title? And it was the same thing. Bang. The title was like
Right.
instantly there. The globalists plan to collapse everything to usher in a new world order. It was there with no time in between it, no space between the words. I just knew the whole thing front to back. And because that was such an instant answer and such a forceful answer to the question, I
Right.
figured, okay, you want me to write a book? I'll do it. I'll
Right.
research the 11
Right.
pillars. And then a couple seconds later, like a minute later, I get these butterflies like, I don't know how to write a book. What did I just sign up for? And how am I going to do this?
Right.
And it was like the instant thought was there, like just the thought was instantly there. Write it from the heart and it'll flow, which meant like, hey, I'm a detail oriented person. I would normally map the whole thing out before I wrote the
Right.
first word. I didn't do any of that. It was a flow. And it was, 3.5 months to write roughly 300 pages, 175 QR codes. 100 of them are video QR codes, so you can check what I'm saying, prove it to yourself.
Right.
About another 75 are, leading you to documents, UN documents, news articles. Basically, as I go along through the book, I prove the point by point. And so the reader gets a break. You're reading, you have your cell phone, you watch a video, as much as you want to watch. Most of them are short. There's a couple that are documentaries, but basically you take it at your pace and you're not faced with this wall of text like most books are.
Right.
So it's got the video, you get a break for the videos and the articles. And there's also lots of imagery in the book to kind of break it up, to pace it. I've never written a book. I don't like to read books that are wall-to-wall text, even if I have a stack of books that I want to read and I don't get to them because I'm just seems like too big of a burden, But when you do it this way, it's manageable and it's kind of enjoyable because it's like you get a sense of the revelation as you go, as you see these creepy globalists, admitting what they're up to, and your eyes are opened. And so, for people, like probably a lot of people listening to this, they kind of know a lot of what's in the book, but they don't have it all pulled together into something where they can get their brain around the whole plan. So it kind of fills in a lot of that for you. But it also can take somebody who doesn't believe any of this stuff and walk them through the experience and get them to become a believer, so to speak, somebody who gets it. Like I said, the shortest point from asleep to hell no. And I have a friend of mine, an older woman who I know, and she knew I was writing the book and she wanted to read it. And she went from that unaware to hell no herself. And it was mind blowing. I mean, at late 70s.
Right.
And she's making a lot of changes in her life. Yeah, totally convinced. And so, that's the thing. We just want people to wake up. And that's all I'm asking for too. That's why I do this. I believe I was shown it for a reason, not just as like some prophetic thing of what's coming, because I don't believe that. I believe I was shown it in order to help create the pushback, just be one more voice among many, trying to wake people up and get to that pushback point, because I believe America can be saved. As far down the rabbit hole as we are, as degenerate as we've become as a society, as lazy as parts of the society have become, as we've drifted from the work ethic that made us a powerful country, despite all that bad news, I think it can be turned around. I really, in my heart of hearts, I'm convinced of that. And when people's eyes are open, they become motivated. They become different people. They become from asleep to wide awake and energized, and that changes everything. So yeah, that's what happened to me through this whole process. I started off overwhelmed with how much evidence there was for this thing coming down, and like kind of bummed out about it. But about halfway through the process, I started thinking, no, I was showing this for a reason. And I started to believe it could be turned around, and we're seeing this today in the UK, where people are pushing back hard against the tyranny there. And we don't get to see much of it on the US news, American news, and that's on purpose. But if we really look around, there's a lot going on around the world. A lot of people are awakening, and it's being repressed. And I think too, even in the US, a lot of the true news is being repressed. I mean, when you look at the recent election results just in this past week, you see how much pushback there is, how many people are coming over to a more conservative view of things. And so the media is always understating the level of resistance. And so we have to be aware of that, and it's to discourage us. But we need to be listening, to the alternative media, to reliable alternative media sources to start to get the fuller picture. Because once we do, we become aware, motivated, willing to take action ourselves. So that's really critical.
Yeah, I kind of have the same story. I had started this show out of COVID. I saw the blatant attacks on free speech and just felt that even though the podcast market was flooded, it's oversaturated. I just figured, I mean, death by 1,000 cuts. We might as well just add another voice to it. So, projects like this, I think, are vitally important, largely because, like you pointed out, the media, the Mockingbird media, controls the flow of information. And even, in my opinion, and what I've been able to gather, through the grapevine as a alternative media outlet, is that even some of the larger alternative media outlets are even Mockingbird media. They're controlled opposition. And it's very interesting because what I've noticed through my study of propaganda is, if things were hopeless, because I just, like many other people, like yourself included, that it's overwhelming, it's very depressing, and the terminology is blackpilling. Although I don't like the pill analogy. I think it's a little bit overplayed, but if things were truly hopeless, their propaganda would be pointless.
They wouldn't be trying so hard.
Exactly. So I definitely appreciate projects like this, and I'm very, very glad that you decided to embrace it the way that it seems like it needed to happen. So with this, you list 8 globalist goals, which seems to be kind of playing out, and not kind of, actually, they seem to be playing out beautifully on their end. And let's see, the list of 8 globalist goals seem to be world government, end of bodily autonomy, social credit scores, programmable digital currency, 15-minute cities, climate lockdowns, criminalized speech, and I would add probably thought to that as well. And also population reduction. So out of these 8, do you believe that they're working on one at a time, or do you think it's just kind of like they're working on all of them pretty much all the time?
I think they're working at all of them concurrently, and they're in different stages. When I had this revelation, I'll call it, the distinct impression I got, and we're talking about the 11 pillars, but the goals are to bring down the pillars anyway, so they're related. But the distinct impression I got was they're all being worked on methodically, but they're at different levels of collapse, of weakness. They're being weakened at different rates, but they're working on all of them. And that would make sense, because you would have different levels of pushback, different levels of complexity to bring these things down. So yeah, I think they're all being worked on simultaneously.
Now, one of my favorite things that you do is actually bringing the videos and the documents into it, just because they do reveal their plans blatantly if you just
Yeah.
pay attention.
Right.
And one of my favorites, if I can choose a favorite out of something so horrific, in my opinion, is the "you'll own nothing and you'll be happy."
Yeah.
So you argue that it isn't aspirational, but it's actually a threat.
Yes.
What led you to frame it in such a way?
Yeah. So they really, number one, they really do want us to own nothing. They want us all to be poor, like serfs, and controllable.
Right.
And so when they give you these analogies that seem overblown, they may be overblown. Like, what was the movie that was out about, I don't know, was it maybe 6 or 8 years ago? The Hunger Games, okay, which are overstated. Okay. You know,
Right.
it's totally dystopic. But when you see like the scenes of the city where the rich, the one percenters, or the 1% of one percenters at the top are living
Right.
these lavish lives, and they're, everybody else is controlled and minimized, and, placed in a situation where they're basically fighting each other. That's a model of really what they want. But so when they say you'll own nothing and you'll be happy, it's my conclusion that the way they may try to get us to, quote, be happy would be basically drugged or chipped or something that affects our emotion, where happiness isn't true happiness the way we think of it, but it could be passivity and kind of acquiescence,
Right.
almost like robotic, dumbed down, slave type of thing. And they call that happy because we're not fighting each other. You know what I mean? But
Right.
we're controlled. And I think that that's where they were going, with the 2020 event and things that got injected into people's bodies, and
Right.
nano objects that are self-assembling.
Right.
It's all with a goal, tied in with 5G and everything else to basically energize it, control it, kick it off, whatever you might want to say. It is a plan of controlling the human mind and the human will.
Right.
And, I get it where people say, no, that's just too much. That cannot be, because that's where I was too. I think we've all been there at some point, even the ones who get it now.
Right.
But I get into this in the book, like how could they be this evil was the name of a section of it. Like, how can anybody be this evil? Well, I mean, you basically have two forces in the world. It's good and evil. It's God and Satan, in my view.
Right.
It's basically a belief in Christ and the power that comes through aligning yourself with him. You could say aligning yourself with God the Father. Either way, you're aligning yourself with God to be a force for good.
Right.
And then there's people who have chosen to align themselves with Satan. I actually made that very aware choice. And most people have no idea that that's even a thing. They
Mhm.
might have seen it on some movies or, some
Right.
like far out stuff, but they don't understand that it really is a thing. There really are people who have sold their soul to Satan, who have aligned themselves with him and all the evil that he represents. I mean,
Right.
Christ said the thief, meaning Satan, he was referring to him, he called him, the thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. And the people who align themselves with that will be doing things that steal, kill, and destroy.
Right.
And that's how they can be that evil, because they're aligned with something that's so foreign to us. The human conscience we have, the sense of mercy, the sense of, trying to understand and empathize. They have none of that. We're cattle to them. We're worse than cattle. We are born to be manipulated and ruled and dominated. And I heard someone explain it this way. It was a pastor, I think. I don't remember who it was, but basically he said, God sees you as a creation, a child of his that he loves and wants to cherish, but it's up to your free will to accept it. He will not force it. But once you yield to that, you are drawn into a family. He sees you as a member of his family. Satan sees you as a trophy, like a hunter sees a rack, a deer. You know, you are a trophy to be ruled and dominated, and you have no value. So God could create a robot army. He could force us, so to speak, if he wanted to, but he doesn't want the robot army. He wants willingness. He wants true love, true surrender to him, right? Satan is totally happy to create a robot army of mindless people. And that's what the New World Order, I believe, technology that they're trying to enforce on us is actually trying to do. We become robotic. We become slaves. And I know that's a super dark picture and probably way beyond what most people even want to think about. But if you think of it that way, everything going on in the world starts making sense, because it really is the ultimate thing. There's good and there's evil, and it's a spiritual power behind it all. And we as humans have to decide which side we're going to align with. Most of us are clueless, and we don't realize we're being influenced both ways. We don't realize there's a decision to make. But that is the ultimate truth. There is a decision to make. And once we make that decision for good, we become almost invincible, Yeah, the people who won't back down to evil, even if they're killed, even if they're thrown in jail, their attitude inspires other people. And so the movement lives on. And, as men in particular, I think men, young men, old men, everybody in between, I think God created men to be spiritual warriors. Right. He wants to see evil totally overcome, but he wants to do it through his servants who are willing to cooperate with him. That's the ultimate victory. He could just smash it all and bring everybody under compliance, but he's not going to do it. Right. It's the way he operates. Free will is like the greatest gift that we can be given. That is the ultimate prize, and that's what we all have. Right. And so, the thing is not to abuse it, to align yourself freely, in my opinion, with God, and say, yes, I'm going to pull everyone around me that I can in a positive direction. I'm going to be like a source of light and truth and help and like joy and generosity, all these things that God is and wants us to be too. It's a decision to try to be that, fight all our flaws on a daily basis and our selfishness and all that junk we are all dealing with, but on a daily basis, aligning ourselves with God and cooperating with him and being a force for good in the world. I think it's totally possible for everybody. Right. I wholeheartedly agree. And so people that are familiar with my channel, you don't know this, but I was actually a practicing Satanist for about 10 years. I did not know that. Yes. Yeah. Interesting. I'm no longer, obviously. And I actually feel as though part of what I do is part of the way in which I repent to be able to make up for a lot of the things I did. Now, luckily, this is something I cover on my channel quite a bit. We're actually re-examining the satanic panic, that there was actually something to, or for people to actually panic about. Okay. That there actually was an organized collection of cults and Satanists that were coming after kids. And I think that's, post Epstein, we tend to see that. Yes. Yeah. That was an eye opener. Right. So, luckily I was never, I was not so far gone into the occult that I was ever brought into any sort of abuse situation or anything. Mm-hmm. So, thankfully for me, that was not a part of my reality. Right. But there were people that I did run into in these circles that most definitely had caused harm to people. Yeah. And, that's definitely part of what I'm trying to do, is let people know these people do exist. Yeah. And kind of to wrap that up in a nice bow is
to think that crime and, for lack of a better term, conspiracy, two people conspiring, something nefarious in secret happens at a lower level, but for some reason does not happen at the higher levels of the billionaires.
Where they have all the power
class.
and temptation. Yeah.
Right. For some reason, it just does not happen at that level. I think is
they're all
very
good
naive
guys.
and childish. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all great, all great. The people that choose to cause war and famine, just great people. They obviously know what's best for us. But these people definitely do exist. The evil exists out in the world.
Yeah.
And I came face to face with a lot of it, and that's, it's truly terrifying. But I think people like yourself, myself, and many other people were actually given a duty to try and wake people up.
Yes.
And it's a very challenging, I would actually argue it's probably a gift. But what kind of pushback have you received on this? Because obviously there's anybody that's been given this gift, there's always pushback. There's always the skeptics that even if you try to show them, they just for some reason reject it. So what has the pushback been like for you?
Yeah, it surprisingly not nearly what I expected it to be. I was expecting a lot. I was expecting friends and family to write me off. If they have, they're not telling me or admitting it to my face. Right. So I have, but I've got a lot of subtle stuff where I have a sister-in-law that really loves the book and buys a bunch of copies, and she gave a lot of it to relatives on her side of the family, and like only one of them out of 10 ever commented to me on it. It's like silence, which kind of tells me that they're not on board. And I had one friend when I was writing the book, when he saw how out there I was with naming names and the clarity that comes across in the book that reveals these people.
Right.
That's what he thought was dangerous. I mean, he said, "I'm worried about you. I'm worried for your safety,"
Right.
I've had some people, like on they'll fill out the contact form and say, "You're full of whatever, go kill yourself," stuff like that.
Right,
you know what I mean? Which is kind of shocking when you hear that for the first time.
Right.
That people would have that in their heart to actually say that, but not that much. Not that much. I was expecting much worse, and I'm surprised. But
Right.
but the one thing I decided early on, it was kind of like inspired by that thought to write it from the heart and it'll flow. I decided early on I was going to be 100% transparent. Like telling in the book, I explain how this revelation came to me. And I know that's a huge risk. Like people would get to that. It's like, hey guys, I'm not some religious freak. I'm not going to believe it. You know what I mean? I'm done. I knew that was a risk, and probably some people do get to that part and put it down. But I think that people can see the transparency and the honesty, and so they're willing to give me more of a listen than if I would have been afraid to just tell it like it is. I'm just like all in. I'm just telling you exactly how it is. What you see is what you get, and because I believe that the human mind and heart can pick up on sincerity, and you just get a gut feel when something's real. And so I'm just going with that, and like, I'm not looking behind me, man. I'm just all in, Yeah. So I think that's helped in terms of not as much pushback as I expected.
Yeah. Well, and it kind of seems, I'm not sure if you would agree or not, but it just kind of seems whether people know exactly what it is, everyone seems to know that something is wrong.
Yeah.
They're just maybe not quite sure what it is. Now, I would argue, and I'm pretty sure that's the message coming through in your book, is that all of these things are actually all part of this same thing that's wrong. So all of the cultural degeneracy and breakdown of American culture is part of the same thing as what seems to be a planned financial collapse. It's all
Yes.
part of the same.
All interconnected.
Correct.
Yeah.
So here we are on this side of it, and we see what is happening. Like you said, everything seems to be at a various stage of decay and collapse. What can we do?
Well, yeah, I think there's things we can do. I mean, I think the most important thing we can all do is get the word out and make a choice. Make a choice of, like I was saying, are we going to be on the side of good or not? Are we going to be all in for this or not?
Right.
And I think that's absolutely essential, because then you get the courage and the backbone and just the desire to spread the truth. And that is the number one thing. Now, in the back section of the book, there is like a preparation segment that talks about a couple different ways. One is what I call mental resilience. And that is basically, you want to remove the ability to be shocked by things. You want to remove the ability for fear to dominate you. So one of the things I go through is, look, these are all the things they've done. These are the logical next steps they might try to execute. And so that if it happens, you're not surprised. You already kind of had a way to think through some of that. So the shock value isn't there, the manipulation value, the fear isn't there. You're able to face it more rationally. So that's one way we can prepare, is to be mentally resilient. And I talk about, spiritual strength as well. And I've mentioned some of those things, but basically aligning yourself with good, gaining a backbone, having that more than mental resilience, it's spiritual resilience. And that is vital, because I believe when we align ourselves with God, then the God factor comes in, and that is prayer. And even for some people, fasting. I haven't really done that, but a lot of people will pray and fast, like asking God to save the nation, getting on your knees every night, asking God to save the nation, asking him to guide our leaders, asking him to root out the corruption. And that's like a daily prayer for me: root out the corruption, save this nation, have mercy on us, And I think as people do that, God does act. I mean, the United States has looked like it was on the edge for a long time. I mean, love him or hate him, a lot of Trump's policies honestly have saved this nation from going down the path that Europe has been on, the fast path toward tyranny. I mean, not that we're not fighting with some of the same things they are, but they are on the fast path because they have nobody like Trump who will push back on anything that really matters much. It's like the grassroots who are pushing back, but they don't really have a political champion who's saying, no, I won't do that. Who's saying, I want to bring manufacturing back. I want to go against the whole globalist plan of the deindustrialization of the West. I want to bring it back. I want to bring back jobs. And so many of the things, if you think about the attack on the family and all this stuff, am I a boy or a girl, the men and women's sports, like all that kind of rot, really. There's been a lot of pushback against that. And I mean, Trump doesn't do it gracefully, but at least he does it. At least he has a backbone. And not saying I agree with all the policies, but I don't know anybody in my lifetime politically that has had 1/10 of the courage that he shows on a regular basis. And that's what we need. We need men, especially, but men and women, to get the courage and to draw the line and to say, no, I'm not letting that happen in my family. I'm not letting that happen on my school board. I'm not letting that happen in my group of friends. I'm going to speak up, whatever it is. We can't do much. We're just one person. But if we all start doing something, it builds momentum. And I think that's really the most important thing to do. And like I said, in the back of the book, there's a preparation section. There's a bunch of QR codes where if you want to get, backup food and storable energy and just like all kinds of things. There's QR codes, you can just get it all done.
Right.
None of them are affiliate links. So I mean, that's something you can do too. But I think the other things we talked about are far more important than that. Yeah.
So one thing I definitely like to talk about on my channel is this fight has been brought into our homes, and that's the front lines of this battle, of this war, is in our homes. You know, trading the poison, the poison chemicals used to clean, the poisoned water, the poisoned air, everything.
Yes.
Poisoned food. You know, it seems like a multi-prong attack, but the front lines of this really is in the home. And when they bring the fight to us like that, that's where every individual person can actually fight back, is right there. And I think one overlooked aspect of this, which is also another thing we try to focus on this channel, is the attack on the mind and the mind control that's coming through the mainstream press and even the mainstream alternative. Now, there were 4 specific media manipulation tactics that you laid out. Would you like to bring these up, go through them, let people know ways in which they are attacked, these tactics that you've been able to identify and lay out for people?
Sure. Let me just let me scroll up to that point in the book here. Yeah, media manipulation, and the symbol of that with the bull, with the pile behind the bull, is on the mug you were talking about. And so the mug has like the mainstream media with the bull and the thing behind the bull on the ground. And the other side has like the Superman alternative media, meaning you know, trying to save the country. Certain aspects of it are. Yeah, so we look at these different ways they manipulate us. You know, one of the big ways is the press itself, and I call them these BS detector tips in the book. So how to recognize when you're being played, you know, by the media or you know, their minions, let's say. So one of the things is to really pay attention to who is demonized, and the idea is that, you know, their enemy, the ones they're trying to demonize, may actually be your friend, and actually a really good chance that they are your friend. So when the mainstream media is just hammering on somebody nonstop without mercy, as they did with Trump, you know, that's often a signal that they are trying to destroy someone who they don't agree with.
Right.
And you notice how they never do that to their own until it's so bad that they almost have no choice. Like Biden,
right.
They finally piled on Biden after that disastrous, you know, debate with Trump, where it was so embarrassingly bad that they had to
no
throw
choice.
in the towel.
Yeah.
And then they all did it together. They were all of one accord. So they also obviously got the word, you know, you got to give up on this guy. So what should they demonize? Number 2 is, be highly suspicious whenever they pile on and repeat the same narrative. And we've all probably seen those things, but there is a video in the book where they just keep repeating the same narrative. They use the same words.
Right.
And they do that because the media is controlled from the top. It is truly, you know, an operation where it is a totally top-down news feed. They're reading the same teleprompter. They might have a couple variations, but they're pretty much all saying the same thing. So yeah, watch when they pile on and repeat the same narrative. That's obviously a ploy to manipulate you. And then things like their use of buzzwords to demonize others, and we've all heard them, but they love to use them. Words like racist, insurrectionist, homophobe, Islamophobe, xenophobe, anti-Semitic, conspiracy theorist. That's a big one. Extreme right wing. That's a big one. White nationalist, climate denier, election denier, toxic masculinity. Like they love to throw those words around to try to frame someone. And to get you to shut down, to not listen to somebody, as they're basically name calling. And my favorite is really being careful whenever they push ideas that are like patently false or absurd, but they say it with a straight face, like, men can have babies. You've seen people in Congress almost saying these kind of things, and you just
Right.
want to slap them. Men can
Right.
have babies. A man who identifies as a woman should be able to compete in women's sports. The 2020 election was the most secure in history. I mean, when there were ballot boxes that were being stuffed and mail-in ballots and the
Right.
corruption that was worse than ever, and they say it was the most secure in history. I mean, it's insulting. And
Right.
just we have to wake up and see it for what it is and realize we're being manipulated. And
Right.
we just have to have our eyes open. Once your eyes are open, you start seeing it everywhere, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah. Yeah. It is very interesting. My favorite are the buzzwords. Obviously, conspiracy theorist is a big one here.
Sure.
I find it interesting because conspiracy is actually the number one federal crime that anyone gets charged with.
Yeah, that's a
and
high level
convicted of.
racketeering and all that. Yeah.
Right. So and when you look at the definition of two or more people planning something nefarious in secret, I mean, that's
Yeah.
basically all crime.
Yeah.
So, and then a conspiracy theorist is basically what a prosecutor does, is being able to take bits of information of a
Sure.
conspiracy and theorize exactly what happened. So,
Sure.
I mean,
That's how you take down the mafia, right? That's how
Right.
you take down these organizations that are conspiring to steal and manipulate and,
Right.
whatever. Yeah.
right. And, just as I pointed out before, it's very interesting, the idea that crime happens on our level, on the little peon level, but for some
Sure.
reason you get up into I have refused to keep calling them elites.
Yeah.
I do not believe that that's an appropriate title. I believe oligarch
agree.
is a more appropriate title, or the controllers, the puppet master. I mean, there's anything that we can call them. They are not elite.
No, they aren't.
And so I just find this kind of interesting, but this is why I believe that the mind control, the language control specifically, which happens through the media manipulation,
Right.
is one of the most important aspects, because this is how they keep everyone asleep.
Right.
And these buzzwords are definitely a great indication of that.
And it's also it's not just the media, but it's how they have a lock on the colleges. A lot of these kids
Right.
coming out of college are all hearing versions of the same narrative, and
Right.
it's very extreme left wing, and you could say communist. A lot of it,
Right.
anarchist. These kids coming out, it's just unbelievable what so many of them are exposed to.
Right.
And these super left-wing college professors seem like they have a lock on most of the education, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah. There's been several polls come out, talk about the political positions of most college professors, and it's I remember when the left actually still loved America at one point. They might be on the left side, but they still were trying to do what was best for the country.
At least outwardly.
Right.
At least,
Right.
Yeah, theoretically, at least. Now it doesn't
Right.
seem like, you look at their platforms and they're so everything that would harm America is what they're for. I mean, you look
Right.
at these blue cities. I mean, you look at Gavin Newsom and what he's done to the state of California, how he's run it into the ground. I mean, the insult to the intelligence, when he can clean that up so that Emperor Xi from China can come
Right.
to California and be impressed with the clean streets. And he even admits it that he's cleaning it
Right.
up for him. And then as soon as he leaves,
Goes
everybody's
right
back on the street, tent cities,
Yep.
needles everywhere. So the insult is that he knows how to clean it up.
Right.
And he'll do it for a communist dictator, but he won't do it for his own citizens.
Right.
Just
And,
unbelievable.
I definitely don't let the right wing slide either, because in my state of Utah, we allegedly have a Republican governor, and he's making the same decisions
Yeah.
to
Controlled
sell.
opposition, right?
Right. right. And I believe this is one of the control mechanisms, the left versus right.
Yes.
That's been used for a very long time, and I think this is more apparent now, especially post COVID, and most recently because of the whole Massey debacle. I believe this is more apparent than it ever has been before.
Yeah.
And it seems as though that you can buy an election.
Oh yeah. I
So,
think you always could. It just wasn't so obvious to us,
right. And I don't think that I don't believe that they're hiding it anymore. Much like a lot of these other issues, the elections, George Soros and the open society, the surveillance state and the privacy we've got flock cameras everywhere.
Yeah.
Now, out of all of these issues, the banking, finance, and the CBDCs, the medical system, what out of all of these issues that we're facing, what do you believe, just personally, that's should be looked at immediately, that is probably of the utmost pressing matter?
Yeah, I think two things. Probably my number one thing at this point in time would be the whole privacy, the loss of privacy, and the invasion of all of the surveillance gear. And the surveillance state is you referred to it earlier, but the surveillance state is gearing up to levels that are truly frightening. We came out of COVID, and at least where I live, and other people, when I've been on podcasts, have echoed the same opinion. We came out of that, and all of a sudden there were cameras on every corner. There were 5G towers that were not there prior to the lockdown. So they used that time to build out their surveillance infrastructure, and they've been going at it hard ever since. The whole
Right.
AI revolution. I personally think there's a lot of good things you can do with AI tools, and I use them myself to help, research, and, you got to keep it on a short leash because, they've
Right.
built in biases, but if you know how to direct it, you can summarize a lot of information quickly. You can perform tasks faster. You can be more productive
Right.
in your work. You can help your customers because of that. So there's good to it, but the surveillance aspect of it is very concerning, and it's going into areas that people walk into blindly because they don't think about how the surveillance technology could be manipulated and integrated. I'll just give you an example. Somebody pointed out to me recently that, okay, you have your smart TV that is supposedly, in some cases, watching your reaction to the commercials and shows, right? It's observing. And, we have cameras, and our cars have cameras. The new cars have cameras internally also observing, right? And so this technology is everywhere. But somebody brought up to me that now with things like an Apple Watch, where it's tied into your biology more, where it's knowing your heartbeat, heart rate, and different things about you, they could theoretically tie that into understanding your reactions to things. What gets your heart racing? What's your physical response to certain stimuli? I'm not saying I know for sure that they are connecting that, but the temptation would certainly be there. And they tend to do things without telling us. We find out later. We find out later that our cell phones have been tracking us even when they're turned off.
Right.
Even when we set all the settings to do not track me, all that does is turn off the commercial trackers. The operating system still tracks you relentlessly. And just like we found this out by accident, they didn't tell us that up front.
Right.
And so it would not surprise me in the least if things like the Apple Watch and similar tech was that information was being sold and that dots are connected.
Right.
I'm not as concerned if it's sold for commercial purposes. Like I can live with that because that's not evil intent. That's just wanting to sell you, understand you so they can sell you harder.
Right.
But when it crosses the line to, yeah, we want to control, we want to observe, we want to store so that we can come back later and sue you for something and trap you, imprison you. That's actually possible with, it depends who's
Right.
at the helm, but the ability to gather information and frame people and make their life, hell on earth is certainly a possibility. And so, the Constitution is we have the right to being free from unreasonable search and seizure. Yet the technology is reading our emails. Anybody that's Gmail or Microsoft Office, if you leave it at the defaults, it's scooping up everything on you.
Right.
A lot of the online tools we use, even Zoom and things like that, that's recording everything. It's just everywhere. And I think there have to be laws written and actually enacted and enforced that will punish people who abuse.
Right.
Yeah, that are not giving people their privacy, basically. But that's my biggest concern. Number two would be the whole financial system. I think it could come down anytime the bankers wanted to.
Right.
So that would be number two.
Right. I agree regarding the right to privacy, which it kind of seems like they are trying to demonize privacy.
Yeah.
The whole argument of, well, if you're doing nothing wrong, you have nothing to hide. And which is a terrible argument. It's a very fallacious argument.
Yeah. Well, the whole Trump administration, it turned out, was doing nothing wrong, but they were accused of colluding with Russia.
Right.
And they used that excuse of the suspicion of foreign influence to then surveil everybody on the whole team.
Right.
And they did that. So they use it as an excuse. They make up a story, use that as an excuse to surveil the heck out of you.
Right.
And then keep re-upping on the FISA, renewing the FISA thing, which Comey did and other people did in government, kept renewing that right to surveil. So yeah, you could be doing nothing wrong, but they just want to surveil and manipulate and basically frame you, and imprison you. So yeah,
Well,
we can't count on them doing nothing wrong because they can make up something on you and
right.
get you there.
And I think we see that popping up more and more regarding, the Flock security camera systems, which is all tied into Palantir, which is absolutely terrifying. The amount of false positives that we get from AI, and yet we are increasingly dependent upon AI to run our civilization, which seems like a massive mistake that it is nowhere near ready to be implemented to the degree in which we have implemented it. And I think certain things like the Twitter files revealing, the documented collusion between, the FBI and social media platforms.
Yeah.
There's very clearly connections between these massive corporations, Amazon, Google. It's almost to the point where a line has been, or the line between corporation and government has almost disappeared.
Yeah, and that's how they get around. That's how they get around the Constitution. They basically get these large corporations to do their surveilling and the things that are illegal under the Constitution, and they pretend, especially under the Biden administration, they were pretending like they weren't colluding, but they really were.
Right.
So yeah, the big corporations become their tool to execute their illegal plans by manipulating the corporations, threats of government lawsuits and everything else that goes with that. That's a very powerful thing when the Department of Justice starts knocking on your door, so to speak, and threatening you with prison or, being exposed for something. That's a pretty powerful tool,
Right. Right. And I would also agree at this point, seems as though, they fully admitted, they meaning the oligarchs have admitted to a purposeful destruction of the US dollar in order to introduce a central banking digital currency.
Right.
They're going to make things so difficult on people that they will willingly take a Fed coin, if you will.
Yeah, right.
A universal basic income will be introduced, and you'll get plenty of money to survive, but that's where the mark of the beast would come in. Is you've got to sign over your soul.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah. And so I don't think any of these things are inevitable. I know the Bible predicts things, but I don't think they're inevitable in the short run. I think
Right.
ultimately, my belief is everything that's in the Bible will eventually come to pass. But
Right.
we have to get out of the trap of thinking that just because things are in some ways on this downward arc, that it's coming soon in the next 10,
Right.
20 years, whatever, 30 years even. I don't think that has to be the case. And I've talked about this on other podcasts, but, I think the Old Testament story of Jonah and Nineveh is a perfect example of where God sends Jonah to Nineveh, this huge city like the New York City of its time,
Right.
to warn the people that his judgment is about to fall, and to basically warn them to repent. And
Right.
we know the story. Jonah runs away. Eventually, he finally cooperates, and he goes into the city saying 40 days and Nineveh's going to fall. And it turns out that the people repent from the king on down, and God spares the city. And I read that historically that city lasted another 70 years before it was destroyed.
Right.
So we can push things way out there by taking a stand, turning to good, so to speak. I think there can be a spiritual revival in this country. I think there can be an economic revival. I think there can be all kinds of good things happening if people just stand up and agree to push it in the right direction. It really is possible. I think one of the great psyops that the globalists try to push on us is to get us to conclude that we're already defeated, because then we give up, and we're not defeated. That's my opinion.
I would have to agree 100%. I mean, I think pieces or projects like your book are very great indicators of that. I mean, if we were already defeated, your book would be meaningless.
Right.
And I completely disagree that it is meaningless, because we still have so far to go. And like I had mentioned earlier, if we were already defeated, their propaganda would be pointless. There would be no reason to propagandize us at this point, because they already have the control, and
they're working hard. They're really pushing hard. So
right. And I do think obviously. I think that they overplayed their hand with COVID, and I think that that's what they're going to do with a lot of this stuff. Again, is they're trying to hurry and get it through, but by doing that, it backfires almost every time.
Yeah, and I think the Epstein files, even though we didn't get everything, I think we got enough that it really exposed a lot of them for who they are. Things we thought were impossible are not only possible, but pretty widely adopted by those in power. The want to call them the oligarchs or whatever you want to call them. So many are corrupt. So nothing that was revealed in the Epstein files surprised me. But what did surprise me is the scale of how many people, how pervasive this is when you're in any kind of position of power, and in Europe, a lot of people were resigning from office and being exposed, being humiliated, and they actually took action. Here in the US, it seems like, we got people who are locked into 2, 4, or 6 year political terms, depending on what position they hold. And they just ride it out. Nobody seems to push very hard to get them out of power. The DOJ just comes up against even the good that's happening within the DOJ at certain levels. It just comes up against so much pushback from corrupt federal judges. Every good move gets blocked, it seems like. And then it goes to the Supreme Court or wherever it goes, and sometimes it survives, but it's slowed down. It's just you're mired in all this corrupt resistance, and I think actually the judicial system is one of the things that frustrates me the most, because so many judges are obviously sold out, corrupt, being paid off. You look at Boasberg, that guy's like such a disaster for any true justice. I mean, how How he hasn't been impeached yet, I don't know. I mean, it's so obvious that he's corrupt, and there's others like him, but he's the most glaring example I can think of.
Right. And I mean, this goes all the way down to, the local level, where we have all sorts of activist judges releasing people early that have no business being out on the streets, or
Right.
doing the cash bail thing. I mean, there's so many issues with the justice system, which is why when anyone points to the justice system to say, oh, look, there were no convictions on this, so that means
Yeah.
everything's hunky-dory, and it's just like, that's not a good argument.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. There's no crime if no crime's punished. Right. So,
Right. Yeah. Such a terrible argument. But I think we'll wrap up here. I don't want to keep you too long. You've been very gracious with your time. But on that note, any final words?
Well, I would say help me spread the word. Go to globalcollapsebook.com. Take a look at the book. Again, you can get signed copies for roughly the price of an unsigned copy on Amazon. If you buy it in sets, it's even cheaper than the Amazon unsigned price. Spread the word, read the book. I mean, if you do get the book, I would say read it the day it lands in your mailbox. It's an easy read. I think once you read it, you'll be inspired to spread the word. And you can find me on my podcast on Rumble /The Globalist Plan. You can see some of my videos there. On the website, there's interviews I've had with other people that you can watch. You can link to from the website, globalcollapsebook.com. So give it a chance. Go there, get involved, help me spread the word. I'm not doing this for money. I'm so far in the red on this whole operation, but I'm doing it, as a service, because I believe I was given this revelation to help improve society, to open people's eyes and help them,
Right.
Kind of have a way to fight back and live a better life, eyes wide open,
Right.
So take a look, go to the website and see what you think. That'd be great.
So all of those links will be down in the episode description. So make sure and check that out. We'd definitely like to get you back at a certain point,
Sure.
kind of get a more in-depth look at maybe some of the specifics
Sure.
within this. So if anybody has any questions regarding these topics, leave them down in the comment section below, and I'll collect those up, and we'll get Alan Paul Roberts back to be able to look at some of these questions, and we'll dive into some of these pillars specifically, and kind of tear them apart a little bit, maybe show some videos alongside and everything. So on that note, I would like to thank all of you for joining us for another episode of Rise to Liberty. Please go to allmylinks.com/rise to liberty. Completely 100% viewer and listener funded. I do not take big donations from anybody that tells me what to do other than the viewers and listeners. So please hit the like, share, subscribe, all of those things. Lets the big tech overlords know that this needs to get out to more people. So do that. Make sure and head on over to Substack. Beware the Mockingbird is my Substack, where we are getting into the depths of the most detailed written account of the Satanic Panic that I've actually been able to find. So go check that out. And I believe that's pretty much it. Once again, the website is globalcollapsebook.com. And also, I wanted to mention, if you go to globalcollapsebook.com/read, he actually gives you the first chapter to read for free. So if you're not already convinced, head on over there and go read the first chapter. So this is a vitally important book, and I'm very excited to be able to have another conversation with you again. And I believe that's it. So if you want to hang out for just a sec, we'll
Sure.
play the closing video. And other than that, until next time, stay free, my friend.